Hello, welcome to the Walker Show. Yeah. Well, this is gonna be my first official YouTube video. I don't know if I'm gonna get into the whole YouTube thing, but maybe. We'll see where it goes, with everything busy. It happens. But, yeah. We'll see where it goes. I am your host, Tavy Walk, which is why it's called The Walker Show. But for the first video, I'm going to be doing a review of Resident Evil 6, because that was a disaster and disappointment to anyone who loves Capcom and moreover loves Resident Evil. Me, fan of Resident Evil, fan of Capcom, even though I wasn't really around during the big era of like the PS1 where Resident Evil started getting really famous. I played all the games, originals, and I liked them, and it seems like between 1 and 3, those were the best. Code Veronica was alright, and then you get Resident Evil 5, and it's like, ugh. And then Resident Evil 6. A complete disappointment and disaster. It had so much potential. Alright, let me give you a slight synopsis of Resident Evil 6. It is, I think, 2015, somewhere in the future. And there are still BOWs. It has Leon S. Kennedy from Resident Evil 2, Chris Redfield from Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 5, and then Jake Mueller. Now, most of you who have played, I highly doubt if you're watching this that you haven't played Resident Evil 6 or really don't care. So, bloom bloom, spoiler alerts. If you don't want to hear any spoilers, bye. But yeah, Jake Mueller is Albert Wesker's son. Yep, he had a son, some random chick out in Europe that he fell in love with and then left. And then she got really sick. Cause she worked for Umbrella too. But back to Resident Evil 6. And then you have Sherry Birkin, who was William Birkin's daughter, who was in Resident Evil 2 with Leon S. Kennedy. She's coming back as well. And when you first start playing the game, you're like, okay, I really like this. I really like the overall mechanics, how you play the game, the overall how you can like move and shoot now, or how you can like jump and like leap to the sides without having to wait for something to pop up to do an action, and you could like just do random like punches, little jabs to start a combo. That was nice at first, but then the plot didn't really, you didn't need those things to play that game. What I like is when you have game mechanics that you will eventually need throughout the game. Half the game mechanics in Resident Evil 6 you did not need to actually go through. Like, even if they were to, make it so that you can move and shoot but keep the overall melee mechanics similar to Resident Evil 5, wouldn't have made a big difference. Now, I love the game mechanics. That and Resident Evil Revelations or Revolutions, or I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name. One of those newer Resident Evils that like with an R, but those game mechanics, great, loved them, but the plot and the overall the story was just it was redundant, and it lacked a lot of depth. It just felt like you were just going around and shooting stuff. I mean, yeah, that's essentially what you're doing in a Resident Evil game. You're kind of just running around trying to survive and shooting zombies. Even though it hasn't been zombies since Resident Evil 4. And Leon was in Resident Evil 4 too, which was that to this day, next to Resident Evil 2. Well, actually, no, Resident Evil 4 is probably my favorite Resident Evil because of the way they made it so that your camera isn't changing every time you turn a corner, but it was third person. The camera was always behind you, and no matter where you went, the camera would follow. It wasn't like it was on the wall and then your guy would run and then you turn and then here's another camera and then your guy is running and then you turn another corner and then here's a camera here kind of going this way and your guy's kind of looks like he's running towards the camera, and it's like, that gets annoying after a minute. Fun games, great, but that got annoying really quickly. And just, alright, back to Resident Evil 6. Chris Redfield. Oh, you're killing me with his plots. Action for the sake of action. What happened, Capcom, to Resident Evil? Come on. Survival horror. We want survival horror. That is the main problem with Resident Evil. It's not scary. It's not survival horror. Bottom line, that is what made Resident Evil. Survival horror. If you don't have survival horror, or if it isn't even on a scale of scary, you've lost a lot of customers, especially the large fan base of Resident Evil, which is pretty big. Because Resident Evil sells everywhere. Pretty much anywhere that has video games has Resident Evil, except maybe Australia. They have some funky rules on video games, but still, it's just, bottom line, it wasn't survival horror. And that being said, that jacked up a lot of people's things. Like, even the Jake Mueller stuff. Even though, yeah, you're playing as Wesker's son, even if it was survival horror, it still would have been a quick run through. But that's not the point. The point is, you constantly had ammo with this guy. There's only one part of his little campaign where you don't have a gun, but it's not like if you didn't or did have a gun, it makes a huge difference. It really didn't. You can use like melee. Your guy will just, when you don't have a gun or when you switch to it, Jake Mueller is the only guy who can do it, who can just put up his dukes and just, fight it out. Wesker's son, but what do you expect? But then it was like, you ran through this level, but there was no urgency. It wasn't like, oh my god, I need to hurry up and get to a gun because these guys are killing me. No, it was, you can take them all out, play around with them while not having a gun, and still beat the crap out of them. It doesn't work. It's not survival horror. That's you just running around beating people's heads in. And how hard is it for Resident Evil to stick with zombies? I would even have been happy with Plagueless in this, where it only mutates depending on which Plagueland had and where you shot the guy. No, these things would mutate regardless. You can like pimp smack it and it would just no, stop. And eventually you'd think someone would stop making these crazy viruses or making more. I know it's bioterrorism, but come on. It's like, oh, we gotta learn how to control this. No. And the virus from Resident Evil 6 is the C virus. And the C stands for cocoon, because they took the DNA of cocoon, or insects that create cocoons and chrysalis. Given that you took the DNA of an insect, where insects have been known to adapt and evolve quickly, and to be able to take a lot of things and to, well, that's pretty much adapting to be put into a certain condition and can still maintain life in that condition and eventually succumb to be able to live in it without any problems. Cockroaches, for example, I mean, they don't create cocoons or chrysalids, but still, they can adapt to their environment really well. That being said, they took, it was like some off-brand progenitor virus and then mixed it with insect DNA, and you get the C virus, which is what you're fighting throughout the entire game, and it is also what Jake Mueller takes that kind of gives him a little bit of power. So since it's not as unstable and crazy as like the T virus or some of the strands of the progenitor virus, it gave him some powers. I shouldn't say it gave him powers, but it made him pretty much perfect. Like he had superb speed, and, perfect reflexes. He could deduce things much faster, even though his intelligence was already there. It was just things would snap much quicker. But and then Leon's campaign, that was the closest thing to survival horror, and I was not scared a bit. Leon is known for being in really scary and odd situations, but you still manage to get out of them. I didn't feel like I was put into situations like that throughout the game. There would be a time where it's like, oh no, there's like a pack of infected dogs coming after me, and then you had to kind of be quick on your feet to take them out, but it wasn't like, hey, okay, if I don't come up with something immediately, like then and there, as soon as I see them, I'm gonna die. There was none of that throughout the entire game, which kind of disappointed me. At least not for most of the game. There was a little bit of that towards the end where you had to kill the big boss. That's final boss battles are always gonna have those sort of elements with them. But again, it's just there are so many things wrong with that game. If you've played it, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's funny, they use the same guy who's been doing stuff for Chris. Roughly like the same cast, people who made it are some of the same people from Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 4, but I heard between like Code Veronica and Resident Evil 3 and 4, the directors and stuff have been different, and the guy who made Resident Evil 1 has since left and is creating he's making or has already made a survival horror game. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure when it's coming out, but look up the guy who made Resident Evil 1, the creator and director. Look at what he's been doing. He's got some nice stuff out there. I'd check it out. Sorry, can't remember the names of the stuff, but hey, what can I say? It's my first video. And yeah, I guess I'll end on that note, but thanks for watching, and see you soon.